Austraeoh by Imploding Colon, read by Deathlight. Chapter 54, Quarry.
Please, Miss Dash.
Rockspot whimpered, his eyes watery.
Don't leave me.
I'm not fricking leaving you, Rainbow Dash hissed. She slid down the hill towards the little colt who was tugging on her tail hairs. She studied her forelimbs atop his shoulders. I'm just having a look-see, that's all. You see that hill? I'm not going past it. I won't leave your sight. I just gotta see what's on the other side.
But...
He trembled and bit his lip. Half-eaten pears littered the grass around his tiny, quivering hooves.
But what if there's more of those monsters? What if they eat you?
Then they won't have the appetite to try to take a bite out of you.
Miss Dash?
Hey kid, seriously. Rainbow winked and ruffled his mane. Would I make the world any less cool by disappearing? She smiled. Besides, I didn't fly all this way after your blank flank just to become bat food. Now sit your butt right here under the shade of these trees and don't move a muscle. And I'll be back in like 10 minutes tops.
Okay.
He gulped and slid back into the shadows.
Whatever you do, Miss Dash, don't hurt yourself.
If I do, it only means I've learned something. She turned from him and galloped up the hill of craggy earth. As soon as she reached the edge, she paused and looked back. From a distance, she could make out Rockspot's trembling form just along the shadowy edge of the pear trees. She could spot him at a moment's notice, but that's because she knew what to look for. She guessed that he was perfectly safe from a random stranger's eye, and that helped her feel better. Stealing herself, she turned around and crept, slowly now, to the very top of the hill, her vision filled with a rising plume of smoke. They lost its crispness, filling instead with hints of sulfur, burning wood, and...
Is that gunpowder?
She murmured. Rima reached the peak and squatted low, her muzzle plowing through the grass as she peeked over. A large quarry stretched below her. It was a remarkably deep and wide pit, something that had undoubtedly taken years to carve unnaturally from the earth. Swiftly, her ruby eyes found who was responsible for such an excavation. They stood 10 feet tall and no less. Their upper bodies were thick, intimidating, and muscular. Their lower halves impossibly held the weight of their torsos. All the while, the hooves dug deeply into the earth as they carried heavy loads of equipment to and from the black wooden-framed entrance to the tunnel that ate into the south wall of the quarry. Minotaurs? Rainbow Dash muttered, her brows furrowed as she hid herself further in the high grass. Could these be the dudes that Fultrot and his buddies trade with? As she thought aloud, her eyes wandered even further across the camp. There were tents spread all across the encampment. Between the number of the canvas huts and the quantity of the equipment, Rainbow guessed there must have been well over 40 of the bipedal creatures spread across the compound. It was a dreary location as well, hardly a suitable place for passerbys wanting to perform free trade. Rainbow couldn't help but wonder what could have possessed Fultrot's caravan to ever stop at this location to begin with. Perhaps the unicorns directed them here. Rainbow Dash rubbed her chin as her squinting eyes fell over the loads of wooden boxes. She saw countless piles of digging equipment, coiled ropes, and dislodged rock. What she didn't see, however, was even the barest hint of the much sought-after crystals that Fultrot trekked across the land for. Maybe the unicorns are late in their delivery? Rainbow felt a frown spread across her lips. Even she knew she wasn't believing her own words as she formed them. Something wasn't feeling right about any of this. The deeper she gazed into the dark entrance of the southern tunnel, the more she started to feel a great sense of unease. But that wasn't all she was feeling. Her eyes twitched, and she felt as though a bright flash of lavender was strobing in the distance. She winced, feeling the tiniest of dizzy spells coming and going. With a blink, she stared at the centermost portion of the camp. What she saw next forced a gasp. Inside a wooden container, there was a single creature. Its wings were worn, and its leathery body had several bruises. Rainbow knew better than to just assume things. But every fiber in her being was telling her that that creature was none other than the one monster that she had tangled with just hours before. No sooner had she made this hawk-eyed observation But a large minotaur with a scarred complexion marched up towards the creature in the rattling cage. The minotaur snorted and spoke a few guttering words to the pair of associates before reaching his belt and pulling loose a silver strip of metal. As soon as Rainbow Dash saw the strip, she went dizzy again. A flicker of lavender danced in her peripheral vision as she clutched the pendant around her neck, seething. The spell ended as swiftly as it had begun. Breathing more evenly, she gazed upon the scene once again. She had to squint hard to see. The creature was gone. The minotaur was sliding the silver strip back into his belt. He marched away from his companions, making for the tunnel on the south end of the quarry. An empty cage rested behind him.
What in the tap-dancing heck?
Rainbow murmured. She ran a hoe through her mane, her face twisted in a puzzled expression. None of this was making sense. She had no more. However, she had more than just herself to look out for. Gazing back at where she had left her rock spot, she forced herself into heavy, contemplative thoughts. Her brow furrowed painfully from the exertion. Suddenly, though, she brightened. She reached into her saddlebag and pulled loose a few of the brown blankets she had brought with her for the journey. She glanced back towards the quarry full of smoke and minotaurs. A slow and mischievous smile crossed her lips.